I grew up in a small town nestled among towering mountains. The air was always crisp and clean, and the silence was often deafening. As a child, I was fascinated by the tales of ghosts and hauntings that were whispered among the townsfolk. I would lie awake at night, listening to the creaks and groans of the old house, imagining all sorts of terrifying creatures lurking in the shadows. The house, a relic from a bygone era, stood at the edge of town. Its withered facade and overgrown ivy added to the eerie charm that seemed to permeate the entire town. The people spoke in hushed tones about the unseen presences that lingered in the air, especially after the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting the town into an inky blackness broken only by the pale glow of the moon. One night, my parents were away, leaving me alone in the old house. The isolation was palpable as the mountains held their breath, and the only sounds were the distant howls of wind. As I settled into bed, the creaks and groans of the house took on a new significance. My imagination began to play tricks on me, and every shadow seemed to be a sinister figure watching from the corners. It was during that oppressive silence that I first felt the eyes upon me. I dismissed it as paranoia, the consequence of growing up with tales of the supernatural. However, the feeling persisted, and the weight of an unseen presence pressed down on me. The air turned icy, and the once comforting creaks of the old house became a haunting melody. I decided to distract myself, turning on the TV to drown out the ominous quiet. The flickering light cast distorted shadows on the walls, adding a surreal layer to the atmosphere. I tried to shake off the unease, convincing myself that it was merely the product of an overactive imagination. As the night wore on, I found myself drawn to the antique mirror in the hallway. Its ornate frame seemed out of place in the dimly lit corridor. I stared at my reflection, half expecting something to move behind me in the mirror's depths. The feeling of being watched intensified, and an unsettling chill crept up my spine. Unable to ignore the sensation any longer, I ventured cautiously through the house, searching for the source of my unease. The silence hung heavy, broken only by the muffled echoes of my footsteps. I reached the staircase, and as I climbed, the shadows seemed to dance along the walls, whispering secrets I couldn't comprehend. Upon reaching the top, I noticed a faint glow emanating from my parents' room. The door stood ajar, inviting me into the room that held secrets of its own. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob, before pushing it open. The room was bathed in an otherworldly light, revealing a scene that sent shivers down my spine. The air felt charged with energy as I gazed upon a figure, its back turned to me. A sense of dread filled the room, and my breath caught in my throat. I stared in horror as the figure turned to face me. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its smile was a rictus of malice. I knew then that I was not alone in the house. The entity had been there all along, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The room seemed to close in around me as the malevolent presence made its intentions clear. The air turned heavy with a suffocating darkness, and the once comforting creaks of the old house transformed into an eerie symphony. The figure in front of me began to glide forward, its movements smooth and deliberate. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. The entity spoke without words, a chilling presence that invaded my mind. It whispered forgotten fears and long-buried nightmares, each word a thread weaving a tapestry of terror. I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, and a guttural voice echoed in my ears, promising an eternity of fear. In that harrowing moment, the old house revealed its true nature. It was not just a structure of wood and stone, it was a vessel for something ancient and malevolent. The mountains that cradled the town in their embrace were not silent witnesses, but rather guardians of a dark secret. As the entity closed in, the world around me blurred into a nightmarish tableau. I tried to scream, but the air had been stolen from my lungs. The walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and the shadows writhed with unseen horrors. In the climax of this nightmarish encounter, I found myself at the mercy of a force beyond comprehension. The entity's icy grip tightened, and its gaze bore into my very soul. I was trapped in a realm where the line between reality and nightmare had dissolved. And then, as swiftly as it had begun, the presence receded. The room returned to darkness, the weight lifted, and the oppressive silence of the mountains resumed. I was left alone, shaken and breathless, in the aftermath of an encounter with the unknown. As I recount this tale, I can still feel the lingering chill of that night. The mountains that once seemed serene now conceal secrets that defy understanding. The old house stands as a silent witness to the supernatural forces that inhabit the shadows, waiting patiently for the next unsuspecting soul to cross their path. In the days that followed that fateful night, the old house held its secrets close, as if shrouded in a protective silence. I struggled to convince myself that what had transpired was a fevered nightmare, a manifestation of my overactive imagination. Yet, the memory of those glowing eyes and that malevolent smile lingered, casting a shadow over my every waking moment. The townsfolk remained blissfully unaware of the supernatural undercurrents that pulsed through the heart of our small community. I hesitated to share my tale, fearing the stigma that would accompany the admission of such otherworldly encounters. The mountains stood sentinel, their peaks touching the heavens, guarding the town from prying eyes and skeptical minds. Despite my best efforts to return to a semblance of normalcy, the old house continued to exude an aura of the uncanny. The creaks and groans now seemed like whispers of a forgotten era, and the shadows harbored secrets that danced just out of sight. Each passing night brought a renewed sense of trepidation, a fear that the entity might return to claim its domain. As I delved into the history of the town, I discovered fragments of a past long buried beneath the facade of quaint charm. Tales of disappearances and unexplained phenomena dotted the chronicles, obscured by the passage of time. The mountains, it seemed, had been a silent witness to a tapestry of fear woven into the very fabric of the town. The antique mirror in the hallway became a focal point of my obsession. Its reflective surface seemed to hold echoes of the supernatural, a gateway to a realm where reality intertwined with the unseen. I found myself drawn to it, compelled to confront the lingering presence that had invaded my life. Late one night, driven by an inexplicable force, I stood before the mirror. The room seemed to shift, the boundaries between worlds blurring. As I stared into the glass, the figure with glowing eyes materialized behind me, its sinister smile etched into the reflection. Fear gripped me, but curiosity held me captive. The entity spoke again, its voice a chilling echo in the confines of my mind. It revealed fragments of a forgotten past, a tale of betrayal and anguish that bounded to the old house. I was a mere intruder in its realm, an unwitting player in a drama that spanned centuries. With a jolt, I found myself back in the dimly lit hallway, the antique mirror once again a silent witness to the unfolding events. The entity had imparted its story, a narrative that transcended the boundaries of time and space. I was left to grapple with the realization that the malevolent force was not a random apparition, but a spectral remnant of a tragedy that had unfolded long ago. In the ensuing weeks, I sought answers from the elders of the town, those who held fragments of the town's hidden history. Reluctantly, they shared tales of a dark pact and a presence that had haunted the town for generations. The entity, it seemed, was a manifestation of unresolved grievances and vengeful spirits. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I faced a choice. I could flee the old house and the town, leaving behind the echoes of the past. Or I could confront the malevolent force, seeking a resolution that had eluded the town for centuries. As the mountains loomed in the background, their silent guardianship a testament to the timeless nature of the supernatural, I made my decision. The old house beckoned, its secrets entwined with the very fabric of the town. I would confront the shadows of the past, unraveling the mysteries that lurked in the unseen corners of our small community. Little did I know that my journey was just beginning, and the malevolent force that had revealed itself to me was but one thread in a tapestry of terror that reached back through the ages. The mountains, the old house, and the ancient spirits that inhabited the shadows awaited the next chapter in a saga that transcended the boundaries of the living and the dead.